Big news, suspect finally arrested into those pipe bombs that were planted January 5th, 2021. Uh, Suspect's a 30-year-old guy from Virginia. This is the New York Times article. I picked this one up to kind of go through for part of this because it's kind of typically of what you see with some liberal media bias. Uh, you try and keep this stuff out. I mean, if you're doing real journalism, you try and keep this out of your regular reporting into the opinion pages. But Trump changed a lot of things, and this is one of them, unfortunately. So, a 30-year-old man from Virginia. This is the lead. This is the first paragraph. Federal agents arrested a Virginia man on Thursday on charges that he planted 2 pipe bombs on Capitol Hill the night before January 6, 2021. A breakthrough that came after years of false leads and rampant conspiracy theories, some promoted by the same FBI leaders who took credit for cracking the case. Well, yeah, there were conspiracy theories, and frankly, a lot of them have come true, like, COVID being out of a lab. If you still think that came out of a wet market, you need to have your head examined. The joke is all my conspiracy theories come true. This wasn't an inside job by the FBI. That's what some, including I think Bongino, who was doing the press conference today, had suggested. But I will say this: it's kind of curious that it took 4 plus years, for this to be solved, and it gets solved real quick once Trump's people are in there. I don't know why that is, but if you've got a little bit of a conspiracy minded part of your body, then I don't blame you. Okay. While arresting a suspect in the case was a significant achievement for the FBI and the Justice Department under Mr. Trump, Ms. Bondi used the moment to criticize Mr. Biden, falsely claiming that the case had been left to languish under his administration. That's commentary. That sentence, the falsely claiming, you just say claiming. What evidence do you have that it's falsely claimed? Well, we go to the next paragraph, and it's not much evidence at all, frankly. Said, in fact, the FBI had gone to great lengths to identify the would-be bomber almost from the moment the explosive devices were discovered. Circulating video clips of a figure walking on Capitol Hill, it said had left the devices. That's going to great lengths? Well, let's continue. Investigators conducted hundreds of interviews and produced intensive profiles on 5 to 10 suspects in the first 2 years of the inquiry. Okay. Let's go back there. No, sorry, we're in the right place. It had been left to languish. So they did all this investigation in the first 2 years of the inquiry. What happened in years 3 and 4? Did the investigation languish? I think a case could be made that maybe it did. If all you've got is, we did all this work in years 1 and 2, and years 3 and 4, it sat there. And we didn't prosecute anybody. We didn't arrest anybody after year 2. We sat on it another 2 years. And then Trump comes in, and I don't know when Bongino and Patel were confirmed by the Senate, but say it was March to November, 8 months later, they managed to arrest somebody. Do I know if this guy's guilty? I don't know. But it's more than Biden did. Again, I want to point this out. So let's go to the next video, next slide. This is a video. Take a quick listen. I've trimmed this down because the back slapping and the patting yourself on the back and all that other sort of stuff just doesn't interest me, but everybody does this. So, the idea that, it's just Trump, kissing up to Trump and whatnot. The Christopher Wray and the other people would have done the same thing if this had happened a year ago and it had been Biden who'd done it. Biden who was president when it happened. So take a listen.
And this was a team effort. The director and the attorney general emphasized that it was not a new public tip this came from. This was our internal work at the FBI.
I don't know why the video doesn't flow. I'll have to work on that. But you heard the audio. The information was all there. This wasn't a new tip. It wasn't new information that occurred. This was stuff that they found in the first year or two, because we got no word on anything on year 3 or 4 when it languished. Bad media. But this next one is interesting. And I saw lawyers on Twitter and /X comment on this too. Mr. Trump, in one of his first official acts after returning to the White House this year, issued a grant of clemency to the nearly 1,600 rioters on the January 6th attack. His proclamation was extraordinarily broad, covering all defendants accused or convicted of, quote, offenses related to events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. It is possible that defense lawyers will try to argue that placing of the pipe bomb should also be covered by Mr. Trump's proclamation. Again, this is the problem with blanket pardons, whether Trump does it, whether Biden does it, where you're not naming people, you're just saying people like this. Heck, this might go back to Carter and his decision to pardon Vietnam war protesters or whatnot who fled to Canada. People who'd been drafted and said, no, I'm not going to fight, I'm going to Canada. Those sorts of extraordinarily broad state, pardons, which could encompass some other people. I suspect that the government's defense is going to be that these acts occurred on January 5th, the actual placing of the bombs, not January 6th. So I think that's, and we'll see. We'll see what a judge in D.C. has to say about that. I'm not going to predict one way or another on that, simply because I can see both ways. I'm skeptical that conservatives can get justice in D.C. It seems like they come down on them like a ton of bricks, and liberals get, the sandwich. I think the guy who threw a sandwich at an ICE agent a few months ago, and he was acquitted. I probably would have acquitted him too. It's stupid, but don't start anything. Nothing will happen to you. But there seems to be that sort of, the juries you get in D.C. are a little bit more forgiving of one side of the aisle versus the other. But that would just be classic. So the next thing I want to point out is, this is something that, and this is from the New York Times article as well. This is something I mentioned on one of my first podcasts or broadcasts or whatever you want to call this. A couple weeks ago, The Blaze, far-right news outlet. Yeah, it's far-right. I glanced at it today for the first time since they published the article we're talking about here. And yeah, it's far-right. Published an article claiming that the bomber was a former law enforcement official identified by a computer analysis of the way the person walked. Mr. Bongino pushed back hard against Blaze's report, saying, this is at the time, saying the Bureau's investigation was continuing. A couple things. If the Blaze and the FBI and whatnot were, the higher-ups of the FBI were giving tips and favoritism to right-wing news outlets now that Trump was in office and these guys are in office, you'd think they would have waved the Blaze off. said, no, no, don't do it. Don't do it. But they didn't. Or if they did, I said at the time, the Blaze was asking for it. Gait analysis. Oh, we're going to do this based on the way this person walks. Man, I mean, it was an interesting little, technological thing in one of the recent Mission Impossible movies. But you're going to name someone and accuse them of serious crimes based on the way they walk, and that's basically it. That's basically all that was in the Blaze article. Not smart. I just no. I went over to the Blaze today. Like I said, started scrolling through, and they churn out a lot of copy for what's probably a reasonably small number of writers. There's maybe 4 or 5 writers, it seemed. They churn out content. I looked through everything published today. There is not a new article on there about this arrest. There's nothing. But if you go back to the article they published, 2 weeks ago, January 6th, no, November 8th, right here we go, November 8th. So this was 3.5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Former Capitol Police officer. You go back to the article today, now we have an update at the top. Update December 4th. News stories published Thursday morning report that the FBI arrested a male suspect in the pipe bomb case. At this point, there is no indication from the FBI that Shawnee Kirchhoff, this is who's going to have a nice payday thanks to the Blaze, is a suspect in the FBI's investigation. This is a developing story and will be updated. You done screwed up. Yeah, that's prepare to cut a check. I'd start backpedaling now because the check will be smaller, but it's still going to be a sizable check. Dumb. I wanted to close this part of the presentation with a tweet from Eric Erickson, syndicated radio talk show guy out of Atlanta. He makes a good point. I would like to also see this happen. With no new leads or information, could you track down a man who planted pipe bombs 5 years ago? Try and figure out who left the cocaine in the Biden White House, since the Secret Service couldn't figure it out. I'd be interested to know, and please do. We'll see if this all holds up. It's going to be interesting, but this was, this is one of the big unsolved cases from around that time. Again, I'm not a big fan usually of conspiracy theories, but there are things that people call conspiracy theories that aren't, and there's plenty of evidence for them. Again, the COVID lab leak hypothesis is probably the best one that I can think of. Thanks for watching this clip from the Hoystory On Air broadcast. I encourage you to follow me on Substack, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to thank you for your support, and please feel free to watch another video or 2 or 3.